Noblis is delighted to join with Federal Computer Week to present today's very important discussion. On behalf of Amr El-Sawi, Noblis President and Chief Executive Officer, who is also listening in, I want to thank all of our speakers for participating in today's discussion. We appreciate your time and know that you have important jobs that are keeping us all safe from a very serious threat. And I want to thank everyone for attending today. We know there are many virtual events available these days and appreciate you deciding to join us. We certainly hope that these discussions that we're having you'll find great value. So in today's internal and external cyber threat landscape, there's broad challenges to federal agencies and to the analysts who have to rapidly process large and increasingly growing amounts of data. We understand this threat and ongoing data challenge at Noblis. We're a nonprofit science and technology and strategy organization dedicated to creating innovative, forward-thinking technical solutions in the public interest. We bring scientific thought, management, and engineering expertise together in an environment of independence and objectivity to deliver enduring impact on our federal government client missions. We work with a wide range of federal government clients in the defense, intelligence, and federal civil sectors. As a nonprofit, Noblis has a robust internally funded research program that is driven by federal government missions and fuels solutions for our nation's most critical challenges. One of these solutions, which we'll be discussing later this morning, is called Artemis, a cyber defense workflow solution that helps analysts make quicker and more informed decisions regarding cyber threats. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Ms. Valerie Cofield, who is a Deputy Assistant Director of the Cyber Capabilities Branch, FBI Cyber Division. Ms. Cofield leads the coordination and deployment of Cyber Division's technical tools and capabilities and oversees all cyber-related training, recruiting, hiring, and finances for the division. She joined the FBI in 1999 as an auditor for the Los Angeles Field Branch Office and was promoted to a financial manager 3 years later. Ms. Cofield moved to the FBI headquarters in December of 2008 to accept a position as a chief of the budget unit in the Criminal Investigative Division. In January 2011, she accepted a new position as the budget officer in the Criminal Cyber Response and Services Branch. In 2014, she was selected to the Senior Executive Service as Chief of Staff in the Science and Technology Branch. Ms. Cofield was promoted to Deputy Assistant Director of the Digital Transformation Office in July 2017, where she engaged the interagency partners and other key stakeholders on policy issues related to current and emerging technologies and their impact on law enforcement. Prior to her selection as Deputy Assistant Director in the FBI Cyber Division, Ms. Cofield was detailed to the Cyberspace Solarium Commission. This congressional commission was authorized through the federal fiscal year 2019 National Defense Authorization Act, and its mission was to develop national strategy for preventing cyber attacks of significant consequences. While on this commission, Ms. Cofield was a senior director and task force lead. Her task force researched issues on how to strengthen international cyber norms and how to more effectively use non-military instruments of state power to shape behavior in cyberspace. The commission completed its report in March of 2020 with over 75 recommendations, some of which turned into legislative proposals with the goal of including these proposals into fiscal year 21 National Defense Authorization Act. Ms. Cofield, thank you for joining us today. Over to you.
Thanks so much, and thanks for that introduction, Rich. I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you guys about the FBI's perspective of the current threat landscape and some of the trends that we are seeing. I will also discuss the FBI's unique role in the complex cyber ecosystem, the partnerships we are nourishing, and how we are positioning ourselves to address future cyber threats against our nation. The FBI has a long history of adapting to threats because of our unique geographic disbursement of 56 domestic field offices and multiple internal legal offices, and our 112 years of experience building partnerships with federal and local agencies, as well as the private sector. We can use these assets to our advantage in cyber, which we consider to be the ultimate team sport. Our broad presence, our partnership, our years of investigative experience, and our dual intelligence and law enforcement authorities puts the FBI in a unique position to be able to impose risk and consequences against our cyber adversaries. I would like to start off this morning talking about the cyber threat landscape from the FBI's perspective and some of the trends that we are seeing from both nation-state and criminal actors. Cyber criminal and nation-state actors pose different threats depending on their targets, methods, and goals. I'll then share how the FBI is addressing the evolving threat environment through our new strategy and reorganization. The cyber environment is unique, it's complex, and there's no linear solution to it. It is unique not only because of its speed, but also because the majority of US victims are located domestically, while a majority of our adversaries operate from overseas, touching US infrastructure as they move towards victims. Complicating matters is the speed at which new technologies and applications are developed. And cyber actors find countless ways to leverage these technologies for nefarious purposes. Actors come in a variety of forms, ranging from multi-state national cyber syndicates to nation-state adversaries, all posing their own brand of threat to US businesses and individuals. We're also seeing a blending of threats, such as nation-states using criminal actors to obfuscate their activities. So what are some of the most significant threats we're seeing? On the criminal side, bad actors are coming in different shapes and sizes. Some are lone individuals, and others work in an organized manner to steal from their victims. Most times they're after a quick financial gain. The emergence and easy accessibility of cybercriminal tools, new technological developments available in underground forums, and the increased cooperation through underground communities have given the ability for even novice criminal actors to exploit sophisticated technical tools. Ransomware is one of the FBI's top priorities for cyber criminal investigations. It has grown into one of the most costly and destructive criminal threats to businesses and governments. The threat of ransomware is growing as attackers are becoming more sophisticated. The FBI has seen an increase in enterprise-level attacks by cybercriminals using ransomware. An enterprise-level attack occurs when every computer inside an organization is targeted and encrypted with ransomware. Due to this increase, we've also seen an increase in the amount of ransom demands. It is not uncommon to see ransom demands at the enterprise-level attacks exceeding $1 million. Also, due to this increase in enterprise-level attacks, we have observed a decrease in ransomware infections targeting just single computers. A recent attack occurred in 2019 when a business employing hundreds of people suffered a severe ransomware attack. The ransomware completely crippled their operations, shutting down all work and threatening the business's existence. 2 of our domestic field offices and our FBI cyber assets in Washington, D.C. were able to quickly coordinate a response. Leveraging previous investigations and intelligence, the FBI was able to provide the company a rarely available decryption solution within just a few hours. This allowed the company to unlock their systems and restore operations in just 3 days. The quick and tailored response prevented the firm from sustaining approximately $3 million in direct losses, as well as preventing damage to the business brand and temporarily laying off hundreds of employees. We are also seeing an increase in business email compromise scams. In 2013, the Internet Crime Complaint Center indicated that over $200 million in losses were reported from BEC scams. In 2019, that number has jumped to $1.7 billion in adjusted losses. Over the years, BEE scams have evolved to include the compromise of personal emails, compromise of vendor emails, spoofed lawyer emails, requests for W-2 information, the targeting of the real estate sector, and fraudulent requests for large amount of gift cards. Most recently, we've noticed BEC scams related to the diversion of payroll funds. In this type of scheme, a company's human resources or payroll department receives an email appearing to be from an employee requesting to update their direct deposit information for the current pay period. The new direct deposit information generally routes to a prepaid card account. We also continue to see the rise in the theft, fraud, and illegal activity associated with cryptocurrencies. While using cryptocurrencies isn't itself illegal, when cyber adversaries use these currencies to conduct malicious crimes, they are not easy to trace and pose a challenge to law enforcement's efforts to uncover the identity of the malicious actors. Blackmail schemes are one of the most common ways cryptocurrency transactions are utilized for nefarious purposes. These schemes involve the threat of releasing compromising or confidential information regarding a potential victim. Subjects will contact individuals via email or mail with the claim that they have information on the individual, often information on an infidelity, and unless they pay using Bitcoins to a provided address, the information will be released. These are often mass mailings with the hope that someone's guilty conscience will lead them to paying. Similarly, there are also sextortion schemes in which subjects contact an individual and advise that they have compromising information or images which they are going to release unless they are paid in virtual currency. The average victim loss for these types of cryptocurrency blackmail schemes range between $5,000 to $10,000. When looking at nation-state actors, all of our adversaries are increasing their use of cyber. Each nation-state may have its own set of objectives, but collectively they seek to gain an advantage over the United States, our allies, and our partners. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea use cyber objectives to achieve their strategic objectives, including financial gain, theft of sensitive information, or to disrupt our critical infrastructure. I won't be able to touch on all of these countries today, but I will mention a couple of them this morning. I'll start off with China. There is no country that presents a broader and more comprehensive threat to our ideas, innovation, and economic security than China. China continues to use cyber espionage to support national security priorities with targets that include the US government, its allies, and US companies. Although the US and China entered into an agreement in 2015 to cease or knowingly support cyber-enabled theft of intellectual property, the country continues to engage in those activities using both traditional intelligence operations as well as cyber operations to achieve their goals. The most effective Chinese cyber operations against US private industry are focused on cleared defense contractors or IT and communications firms whose products and services support government and private sector networks worldwide. China conducts a whole of government approach to its intelligence collection strategy. While cyber network operations remain a primary and possibly increasing collection tool, China also relies on techniques such as intellectual property theft, legitimate purchases of US corporations, and other means to acquire US data. We've had some high-profile successes just this year, though, against this actor. In February, DOJ indicted 4 People's Liberation Army members for numerous offenses related to the Equifax breach in 2017. In July, DOJ indicted 2 members associated with China's primary civilian intelligence agency, the Ministry of State Security, for hacking into the computer systems of hundreds of victim companies, governments, and NGOs. These hackers targeted intellectual property and confidential business information, including information associated with COVID-19 research. Our indictments are only part of our overall efforts to mitigate the threat from China. Part of our goal in imposing risk and consequences on cyber adversaries is to enable actions of our interagency partners. For example, after the FBI issues an indictment, other agencies can leverage their authorities to impose additional costs on the responsible country, like the State Department limiting the travelability of subjects or Treasury imposing sanctions. We also want to equip our private sector partners with this information so that they can protect themselves. We're committed to sharing actionable threat information and cyber indicators with our private sector partners so they can protect their businesses and employees. Russia continues to be a highly capable and effective adversary. Russia is integrating cyber espionage, cyber-enabled attacks, and influence operations to achieve their political and military objectives. The Russian government continues to seek to legitimize itself as a world power and uses cyber activity to project power against its adversaries. Russian intelligence and security services have and will continue targeting US information systems, as well as the networks of our NATO and Five Eyes partners, for technical information, military plans, and insights into our government's policies. To counter the Russian threat, we have also used indictments as well as other tools. In 2017, DOJ indicted 2 officers of the Russian Federal Security Service, or FSB, along with their criminal accomplices for hacking Yahoo from between 2014 and 2016. More than 500 million Yahoo email accounts were affected. In 2018, DOJ indicted 7 officers of the GRU, which is the main intelligence directorate of the Russian military, for hacking into the US and international anti-doping agencies and sports federations for accessing data related to 250 athletes from 30 countries around the world. Also in 2018, DOJ charged 12 Russian nationals for committing federal crimes that were intended to interfere with the 2016 US presidential election. Understanding the threat landscape and identifying threat trends and actors depends on threat analytics, which will be the focus of today's discussions. When leveraging the idea of threat analytics at mission speed, we must understand the distinction between raw data and actionable intelligence. It seems obvious, but experience has shown that the volume and content of raw data and how to process that data via some sort of machine, or application is the paramount focus of most discussions about analysis at mission speed. The government and the private sector can be overwhelmed by the volume of data it has and how to discern from the data what is actionable threat information or just noise. However, it is a common misperception to believe that technology alone is the sole solution to this problem. The FBI, like other government agencies and private sector firms, has no shortage of data. We collect large amounts of information from our intelligence and law enforcement operations, but taking that data and deriving value from it is a human process. At the end of the day, it is people who are making the determination about intelligence value. There are many systems and methods that can process, present, and visualize data in a way that assists in this effort, and there will be a lot of discussions today with some brilliant speakers on these systems and methods. Before I yield my time to them, I would like to add a thought that I'm sure many of them will also touch on, that even with the best tools at our disposal, connecting the dots from a point of incident back to a known or attributable person of interest is something that currently can only be done to its fullest extent by people. Machines help, and our investment in technology is important. However, mission speed requires the actions of people. And as we evaluate investments in our processes and analytic tools, we cannot forget to invest in experienced people who will ultimately use technology to its fullest extent to produce intelligence of value. As you may know, the federal government is aggressively looking to obtain more cyber-related talent. It's no different at the FBI. We have recently adopted new positions such as data analysts and digital operations specialists to help us manage and understand our data. These new positions, together with our cyber agents, analysts, and computer scientists, will help us better analyze and use our intelligence to combat our current and future cyber threats. As malicious cyber activity is evolving, so is the FBI. Cyber has become a top priority for our organization, and we've developed a new strategy to counter this complex, ever-changing threat. Our vision is safety, security, and confidence in a digitally connected world. We accomplish this vision through our mission of imposing risk and consequences on cyber adversaries through our unique authorities, world-class capabilities, enduring partnerships, building upon a century of innovation. These authorities allow us to conduct cyber investigations, collect and disseminate intelligence, engage with victims, partner agencies, and the private sector with the primary goal of attribution. The engagement piece is key for us. At the FBI, as I've mentioned before, we consider cyber to be the ultimate team sport. We cannot beat our adversary on our own, but working together and enabling our interagency partners, as well as our private sector partners, we can make tremendous headway. For example, I mentioned attribution just a moment ago. The FBI's unique intelligence collection on criminal and national security threats is a part of the US government's deterrent strategy. Our intel drives the government's attribution of malicious cyber actors. Additionally, attribution backed by FBI intelligence empowers the government to impose a range of consequences against malicious cyber actors, from indictments to the use of diplomatic tools. These consequences, in turn, build deterrence and send a message that the US will not tolerate the victimization of our citizens and businesses. Our investigations also yield information that enables the government to notify victims and prevent future intrusions from occurring. We can also share threat intelligence, such as indicators of compromise, with our private sector partners so they can harden their networks. And our private sector partners can then share their information they're seeing on their networks with us. And so the team analogy goes on. But before I close, I want to just briefly mention a few ways that we engage with the interagency, our communities, and the private sector when it comes to cyber threats. One of the newest actions we have taken to address current and future cyber threats, is strategically reorganizing the National Cyber Joint Intelligence Task Force, or the NCIJTF. Per the recommendation of the 2020 Cyberspace Solarium Commission, which published its report on March 11th of this year, the FBI is strengthening the NCIJTF to coordinate whole of government counter threat campaigns and to enable other agencies' missions in support of national strategic objectives. The NCIJTF has created new mission centers based on key cyber threat areas. These mission centers, each of which will be led by senior executives from partner agencies, will integrate operations and intelligence across agency lines to more effectively impose risk and consequences on cyber adversaries. It's not just our experience and authorities, but it's our presence in communities that also puts the FBI at the center of the government's efforts to combat cyber threats. Across the country, in our field offices, we have multi-agency cyber task forces called CTFs, which are modeled after our joint terrorism task forces. These CTFs mean cyber investigators can respond to cyber incidents anywhere in the country as quickly as they respond to a terrorist threat or kidnapping. We can be on site at dozens of locations at the same time with agents and technical experts trained to investigate cyber incidents. Having this level of presence across the country means businesses have local FBI points of contact just a short drive away in the event of an incident. The Cyber Action Teams, or CAT, is the Cyber Division's investigative rapid response teams. The CAT can deploy globally to bring in-depth cyber intrusions experience and specialized investigative skills to FBI initiatives, investigations, and emergencies deemed critical and significant. An example of a CAT deployment is in September of 2019, when the CAT deployed on scene to Kiev to help the Ukrainian authorities take down a prolific hacking syndicate known as Fin7. This led to a subsequent arrest in Seattle of a Ukrainian national by the FBI in May of 2020. In the last months, the CATs assisted FBI Houston and FBI San Francisco, both on scene and virtually, in investigating intrusion activities in 3 separate victim networks involving COVID-related research, whereby CAT's involvement led in the identification of malware infrastructure utilized by actors. The Internet Crime Complaint Center has an recovery asset team called RAT, which was established in February of 2018 to assist our field offices and to streamline communications to financial institutions in an effort to recover funds for victims of any crime type whose transfer funds to fraudulent domestic accounts. I'll give you one example of how the RAT team works. One victim in the healthcare business made wire transfers amounting to nearly $1 million before realizing they were being scammed. The victim notified IC3 and the RAT quickly initiated their domestic financial fraud kill chain to request the recipient's financial institution to freeze the associated account and any remaining funds. A portion of those funds were successfully frozen. We continue to look for innovative ways to help victims of various cyber crimes. And for example, last year we created a new team to partner more closely with financial and law enforcement investigators in an effort to dismantle money mule organizations. As I mentioned in my opening, the cyber threat landscape is constantly evolving due to the fast-paced development of new technologies and applications. Threat actors ranging from multinational cyber syndicates and intelligence services to insider threats and hacktivists all pose different and unique threats. As the cyber threat evolves, we are and will continue to evolve as well. The FBI has a long history of adapting to our threats. We're using our unique authorities, world-class capabilities, and enduring partnerships to impose risk and consequences against our cyber adversaries. But as I mentioned earlier a couple of times, we consider cyber to be the ultimate team sport, and only by all of us working together will we be able to mitigate this threat. Thank you again for joining me this morning as I was able to share some of the current cyber threats that we see from the FBI's perspective. Thanks for your time, and I'll open it up for a couple of questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cofield. There's a whole bunch of topics. I want to try and keep them grouped together as best we can. And I think the team sport is the place to start. You talked a little bit about the NCI-JTF, but several people, including Conrad Jalali in the audience, just asked you to characterize the state of coordination between the FBI and agencies like the NSA and CISA today. And maybe the way to frame that is, how has that coordination evolved over the last few years?
Well, I think as I mentioned earlier, right now we're going through, I think, a very exciting period in the development and evolution of the NCI-JTF. As I mentioned earlier, what we're trying to do is create, and what we are doing is creating mission centers. So centers that are focused on some of our top priority threats, like Russia, China, and criminal actors. And what we're doing, because we do need to work together in the cyber arena, is we're bringing on SES level executives from different agencies to lead these efforts. So Secret Service has signed on. They're providing an SES executive to lead our criminal efforts. CIA right now has also signed on, and they're going to be leading our China efforts. And we're looking to partner also with Cybercom and NSA as well for the Russia efforts. And CISA has detailees. CISA has actually just announced a canvas for detailees to the NCI JTF. So we are working together and trying to look across our agencies, because we all see and have a different perspective on the threat landscape. So we're hoping that the NCI JTF is a great place for us to bring all our perspectives together and to have a coordinated discussion and talk about what's the best way to combat this threat given these different operational centers and their focus.
Thank you. And the Mission Center sort of anticipated the next question, which is to what degree do these like nation state strategic threats does the FBI handle them differently and through different teams or channels than through the more traditional criminal cyber threats?
So I think there's a misperception with some folks out there about the FBI. We are a law enforcement agency, but we are unique in the sense that we also have a national security focus and priority as well. And so when it comes to nation state actors, as I mentioned before, we work together across the interagency and really with our partners around the world, since cyber is a global threat and there's no geographic barriers to how cyber criminals or nation state actors use cyber. And so this is, again, the NCI JTF provided us a unique opportunity to be able to not only leverage our national security authorities, but partner together with agencies like the CIA, the NSA, and Cybercom to work these threats together.
Okay. And this question came from Alicia Farrell, who was asking, how much collaboration does the FBI do with SMBs, who also work with the DivNet? Who has the lead on those investigations and cases if there is a breach, whether it's DoD, the FBI, or some other organization?
I guess I'm unfamiliar with the term SMB.
Okay, and I'm reading verbatim. We'll sort of take that one offline for follow-up later. Okay. You talked a lot about the people side of this, and I do want to come back to the technology if time allows. But for workforce development, does the FBI have a university or school outreach program to be bringing new talent into the Bureau? New cyber talent into the Bureau, I should specify.
We do have our honors internship program. It's not specifically for cyber. It's our general. It's a general way where we recruit new talent into the Bureau. We are working on trying to develop specialized pipelines for cyber and other STEM-related specialties that we need in our organization. But currently, that's really our main recruiting tool is through our FBI Honors Internship Program.
Okay. And I'm curious how you've adapted the field office structure and the broader workforce to this more data-centric type of investigation, knowing that the data is part of all FBI operations. But you mentioned yourself just the scale of data that goes into threat analytics. How has the FBI worked to adapt both the infrastructure but more importantly the workforce and the people culture to focus on this threat?
So we're still evolving. I won't say that we've arrived with any of these issues like most other government agencies. I think with our IT infrastructure, we have a whole initiative, which we're calling our IT Monetization Initiative, where we are looking at all aspects of our infrastructure, both here in Washington, D.C., but also with our interconnectivity with our 56 field offices and our international offices overseas. So we're doing a whole-scale revamp and relook of our the backbone of our IT infrastructure. On top of that, I think with the challenge of data that everyone's seen, and I know some people can use the word cyber in different we have different meanings associated with it, but really the volume of data, no matter if it's a traditional crime that the FBI investigates, like a white collar crime, there is technical electronic data associated with every single criminal violation that we investigate, as well as national security violation. And so we are working internally to raise the level of proficiency, of technical proficiency of all of our employees, but especially in this arena. And that's one of the reasons why I mentioned our data operations, our data analysts, and our data operations specialists. These are relatively new positions to the Bureau. I know the private sector has had similar positions like this for a while, but they're going to be really key in helping us because of the large amounts of data that we have and the different types of data. We really need people who specialize in how do we best normalize that data? How do we best, use our tools and tech and our infrastructure to be able to make sense of that data and to be able to give our investigators and our analysts easy access to be able to triage and figure out what is actually important.
Okay, and thank you. And this question came from Patrick Alcorn, and it's sort of the external facing version of the question I just posed, which is what sort of barriers has the FBI encountered around cybersecurity information sharing, both with the private sector and to other government agencies? If there's an area where there's still need for improvement or real friction points that you feel the Bureau has had to address.
I mean, I think one barrier that's I think is common probably amongst the private sector as well as federal government agencies is just how stovepiped all of our information is. I mean, even in our organization, we have such a breadth of crimes that we investigate, and we have, we're divided into different what we call divisions. So we have a counterterrorism division, a counterintelligence division, a criminal division, a cyber division, and all of these divisions have unique sets of data. And really a challenge for us has been to how do we put all of that data in a place where we can all look across our unique sets within our divisions and use that to the greater goal of catching an adversary, because obviously our adversaries aren't stovepiped that way. And so, but again, I think that this is a common problem that many agencies and big private sector companies have is they've got data in different pockets of their organization. So what is the best way then to get that data into a centralized place where many people can view it? And how do you get that data in a format that is actually viewable and actionable by the consumer?
Thank you. And I hate to cut off a conversation that could go much, much longer, but we are at time, and I want to make sure that we do keep on schedule for the other speakers. But Valerie Cofield, thank you for being with us today and kicking things off and sketching the landscape for us. A very, very helpful way to start today's discussion.
Thank you.